Hello, in this video I'll be teaching you about fractions, about what they are and how do we work with them. The main thing we need to learn about fraction is the concept of a whole. It could be a whole apple, a whole number, or even a whole of this strange looking circle. Let's say we divide it in 4 parts. Then how do we call these parts? How do we convert them to numbers, to fractions? Now picture this. It is your birthday and we have this cake. And let's say we want to divide it in 5 equal parts. So we divide it. And let's say we want to name these 2 parts. So how do we name it? How do we make it a fraction? First, we have to look how many parts make up this whole. We count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. 5 equal parts make this whole cake. And we want to take out 2. These 2. So we say these 2 are 2/5 of this cake. That is how we make fractions. And we call this number the numerator and we call this number the denominator. Like this. Now look at this. We have these 3 things which are composed of 4 parts, 4 equal parts. And let's say we want to take 1 out of 4. So this is called 1/4. Let's say we take 2 out of 4. And what is this? This is half, because here we have 2 and here we have 2. So let's say we write 2/4, and it's the same thing of 1/2. This is simplification. So it's the same because this is half and this is half too. And now if we take 3 pieces out of 4, we call this 3/4. Now of course if we take all of the parts, that's 4 out of 4 parts, which is the whole thing, which is equal to 1. So here we have half an apple, because this is 1 out of 2 parts. Here we have 1/3 of a triangle, because this is 1 part out of 3 parts, equal parts, which compose this triangle. And here we have a whole cake. This is not a fraction. However, fractions are parts of a whole, so the number 1 is important. So what operations do we do with fractions? And the main ones are sum of fractions and multiplication of fractions. I'll be teaching you what they are, how do we make them, and what they represent. So let's start with the sum, and let's work with apples. And let's say this is half an apple, because it's 1 part out of 2 equal parts which form an apple, and this other part is 1/2, half 2. They both are half an apple. So if we sum them, what do they make? If we take 1 piece of an apple and we put it next to another apple piece, we have a whole apple. Oh, this looks really bad. So half plus half have to make 1 apple, right? Now how do we make this sum? What operations do we do to accomplish this? Now to sum these fractions we have to take the numerators and multiply them by the other's number denominator. So we multiply 3 times 2, then we sum that, because the operation is a sum, and we make the same process, 1 times 4. And we divide this operation by the multiplication of the denominators, 4 times 2. So what is this equal to? It's equal to 6 plus 4 over 8. So 6 plus 4 is 10 over 8. And we can simplify this. Simplify. Over 4 is equal to 5 over 4. Now if you don't know how to simplify, you can leave the result just like this. This is not wrong because they are the same thing. Remember, if we have 4 equal pieces and we take up 2, this is half, right? So this is 1 over 2, and it's also 2 parts over 4 because it's 2 pieces out of 4, and it's half. It's the same thing. So this is also the same thing as this. This is not wrong, it's just not simplified. Now what does this mean? What does this sum means? Let's say we have this thing, and which is divided in 4 parts, 4 equal parts, okay? So 3/4 of this would be this. 3 equal parts out of 4 parts, which make this item. And here we have half. Let's say we have the same item divided by 4. So we take half the item, right? This is the same as 2 over 4. They are the same. So this is equal to 5 over 4. Now what is this? What is 5 over 4? We have this piece which is composed by 4 parts, right? So what is 5 over 4? Now remember, the denominator says how many parts, how many equal parts compose this item. It's composed by 4 equal parts, okay? And the numerator says how many of those pieces we have. So this is one piece, this is another piece, this is another piece, and this is another piece. We have 4 pieces which make up this item. But this fraction says we have 5 of those items, so we have to add another one. So this is 5 over 4. This is 5/4 of this item. Okay, it's more than one item. It's a little more. If you want to understand it, let's say this is the whole item, and we have more than that. We have 5 pieces, 5 equal pieces in this piece, more than this. So if this is a cake which is divided in 5 equal parts, and I say I have 6/5 of this same cake, what does it mean? It means we have these 5 pieces of cake plus 1 extra piece of cake. Okay? It's the same as it's the same as this whole cake plus a little piece of cake, which is 1/5. So we have more cake. The main thing here is that whenever the numerator is bigger than the denominator, it means we have more than a whole. If I say I have 4/3 of an apple, it means I have more than an apple. Okay? Now the concept of simplification is very useful for these kind of things, because it's much easier to understand if you have a fraction simplified. For example, here you have 2/4, 2/4. That's what we have, a piece divided in 4 pieces. We have 2 little pieces out of the whole. What is this? This is 2 pieces out of 4 pieces, and this is half the piece. It's the same thing as dividing this whole piece in 2 pieces, 2 equal pieces, and taking one out of those 2 pieces. Now this, we have an item divided in 8 pieces. One, two, three. Now we take 6 out of these 8 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And it's the same thing as dividing this in 4 pieces, here, here, and here, and taking 3 out of those 4 pieces. It's the same. Now, to perform a simplification, you have to think of a number which can divide both the numerator and the denominator. For example, we can't use 3 here. Why? Because 12 divided by 3 is equal to 4. However, 16 divided by 3 is equal to 5.3333, an indefinite number of times. So we can't use this. It has to be a whole number. Now, 12 and 16 are both divisible by the number 2. 12 divided by 2 is 6, and 16 divided by 2 is 8. So we can use this number, okay? So we divide this by 2. This is equal to 6. We divide this by 2, and this is equal to 8. Now what happens here? This 6 is also divisible by 2, and this 8 is also divisible by 2. So we can perform the same action. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So this is equal to 3/4. This can't be more simplified. There isn't a number which can divide 3 and 4 at the same time. Now the next concept we want to learn about is multiplication of fraction. This is much easier to perform than a sum of fractions, because here you just multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. For example, this multiplication, 1 times 1 is equal to 1. 4 times 2 is equal to 8, and this is the result. Now what does this mean? What does this multiplication means? Now we have this piece divided in 4 little pieces. 1/4 is what? 1/4 is 1 piece out of 4 little pieces. Okay? When we multiply this by half, what do? What we do is we take this piece, which is 1/4 of the whole piece, and we divide it again. We divide it again in 2 parts, and we take 1 little piece out of that. So what we have left is 1/8, which is the same as taking this whole thing, dividing it in 8 parts, I'm taking 1 out of those 8 parts. So what this is saying is this is taking half of this 1/4 that we already have. We had this 1/4 and we take half of it. So we have 1/8 of the original piece. So this is just taking half out of this thing. Let's say we have an apple, okay? 1 apple. I could call it 1/1 to make it a fraction. It's the same. It's one piece out of one whole piece. 1/1 apple, okay? Let's say I multiply this by half times half. There it is. Now we perform the multiplication. Numerator times numerator is equal to 1. Denominator times denominator is equal to 2. This is equal to half an apple. Okay, so this number said we had to take half of this other thing. Okay, so now we have half an apple. Let's put seeds. And let's say we again multiply this half an apple times half. So we perform the multiplication. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. What does it mean? We took half again of this half we already had. We had already half an apple and we took half of that again. So now we have 1/4 out of a whole apple. This. Okay? Now look at this. 3/4 times 4/3. What is it equal to? 3 times 4 is equal to 12. 4 times 3 is equal to 12. So it's a whole piece. It's 12 pieces out of 12 pieces. It's equal to 1. What does this mean? We have 3/4, right? We have a piece which we divide into 4 pieces and we take 3 out of them. So this is this. And we multiply that by 4/3. What does that mean? It means we take this piece, okay? We take this piece, we divide it in 3 parts. 1, 2, and 3. And we take 4 equal pieces. So we take 1, 2, 3, and an extra 4th piece. So the result is we have the whole original item again. So if we have multiplication which is, for example, 6/8 times 8/6, this will be equal to 1, 2. Okay, if this numerator is equal to the other's fraction denominator and vice versa, this is equal to 1. It simplifies. So those are the basic things we have to know about fractions, the most basic of them. We can perform other things like, for example, division. For example, if we want to divide 4/2 divided by half, how do we perform this? We can transform this to a multiplication. the only thing we have to do is flip this, okay? We flip this and we turn it into a multiplication, so it's equal to 8 over 2, okay? We can simplify this, and 8 is divisible by 2, so we have 8 divided by 2, 4. 2 is divisible by 2 is 1, so this is equal to 4. Now this fraction was actually equal to 2. We divided it by half and it turned out to be 4. What happened? What happened here is that division is the opposite operation of multiplication. So if we divide it by half instead of multiplying it by half, it does not take half of this item, but it doubles this item, okay? So it becomes 4. So if we have half divided by 1/3, how do we do this? We change it to multiplication and we flip it. And it's equal to 1 times 3, 3. 2 times 1, 2. Remember, when the numerator is bigger than the denominator, it's bigger than a whole thing. So it got bigger. It was half a thing and it became more than a whole thing. So we had one piece out of 2 pieces. We divided it by 1/3, and now we have 3 over 2, which is dividing this thing by 2 pieces and taking 3 of those equal pieces. So we have this, and this extra piece over here. So it's bigger, okay? And look at this. The same thing than before happened. We had 4 over 2 divided by half, and it doubled it because this was equal to 2, and dividing it by half made it equal to 4. It doubled, okay? The contrary of what would happen if we multiplied it by half, because if we multiplied it by half, it would be the half of this thing. The same thing happened here. Look, this is the same thing as taking this original thing and tripling it, okay? It's the triple of it. The opposite of what would happen if we multiplied by 3 over 1. If we multiply by 1/3, I mean. Now that's really all now, folks. If you like this video, I'd like you to subscribe to my channel. I'm new here and I'm trying to take this opportunity to teach, to give my knowledge to others. So I would be very happy if you would subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. I'll be seeing you